Right, welcome everyone. Today we are doing analytical geometry. This is mainly for grade 10, but also grade 11 and grade 12. It is a very useful basic that you really need to do some part of geometry. So let's just start immediately. Analytical geometry is basically a study on three things on the Cartesian plane. So we'll be investigating the following. Number one, the distance. The distance between 2 points. Between 2 points. We want to know what is the distance between point A and point B. Number two, we'll be studying at what? The midpoint. The midpoint between 2 points also. What is the midpoint? The midpoint is the middle coordinate between 2 points. And then number three is the gradient. We all know what's the gradient. The gradient is when you're measuring the slope or the steepness of a line. And we did this in detail when we were doing functions, but I'm going to recap it when we are doing it. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to give a basic explanation on each topic, do one example for each of these problems, and then I'm going to do a more detailed video when we're doing application, because of it looks easy when we're doing them, we're going to see, but once we deal with the application part of this part, that's where it becomes more interesting. So let us start. We're starting with the first one, which is the distance. So let's start with the distance formula. They're going to give you the formula as, let me just do something here. The distance formula, it's given in these two ways. Let's say we're measuring a distance between 2 points. One point will be A, another point will be B. The formula will be this. The difference between the S coordinate of B and the X coordinate of A squared plus YB minus YA. So on the subscript, usually it's X2 minus X1, Y2 minus Y1. It does not really matter which one you put there, but I'm just using this because I'm trying to show you which X coordinate are we taking. Okay, you can even do it the other way around. You can start with the X coordinate of A. It does not matter because we're gonna square this. So this whole bracket, whether it's negative or positive, it's gonna end up as positive. Also, because of the square root of a number cannot be negative, because we don't want to deal with non-real numbers. So it is always going to be a positive number inside. Okay, we can use this one or this one. So AB squared equals to X. Okay, let me use X2 minus X1 in this case plus Y2 minus Y1 all squared. So there's nothing different. What I did there, we know if we want to get rid of a square root, we're going to square both sides. So that's what is squared. You can either use this one or this one. It works perfectly the same, but we're going to see when we're dealing with application, we're going to be focusing on this last topic more in more detail. So the question, here's a question, very basic. It will say calculate the distance between 2 points. Now let's say point A is on the Cartesian plane, it's 2 and 3, and B is given as 5 and 7. So obviously you need to know how to plot this. We're calculating the distance. Can I just take this a bit there, and then I'm gonna draw it. So let's assume you're drawing this on a Cartesian plane. We want to know, let's say this is 2 and 3. We want to know this is 5 and 7. We want to know what is the distance from A to B. So which formula we're going to use? We're going to use the first one. So it's like this. AB equals to the square root of, you can use this one, x1 minus y1 squared plus x2 minus y1. Now the most important part is what we're going to do now. You go to your coordinates, then you choose which one is going to be your x1, y1, and the other one should be your x2, y2. You can choose this one to be x1, y2. This is your second coordinate, your first coordinate, whichever one you want to start with. But what is most important is that once you decide, you're going to have to substitute inside this according to the order. You cannot mix them up after you choose. I hope you get it. So let me show you. So open square root, open bracket. Which one is x2? x2 it's 5 minus x1 will be 2, close bracket, squared, plus y2 will be what? 7 minus 3 squared. Do you see it? Then you're gonna have to continue with normal algebra. 5 minus 3 is how much? 5 minus 2, sorry, it's 3 squared, plus 7 minus 3 it's 4 squared. Then you have 3 squared, it's 9, plus 4 squared, it's 16. That plus that is 25. And then you go to your calculator, you find the square root of 25, you're gonna get it's 5 units. So the distance between A and B is actually 5 units. I hope you get it. Very, very basic. This is how you're gonna use the formula. So in the test, you might not be given the formula, so you need to know the formula. The difference between the x values, the difference between the y values, in between is a plus, and you need to square them. Don't forget the square root, and you solve your answer like that. So if you're using this one, automatically you go with the square root up until the last part. But if you're using this one, you need to remember to put in the square root at the end. Okay, so we're gonna do that in detail after when we do an application on this. Moving right along, let's go to number 2, distance midpoint. Midpoint. So the midpoint is the middle number, the middle term of a certain coordinate or whatever. So the formula of the midpoint is given by, let's say M stands for the midpoint. Okay. The formula of the midpoint will be x1 plus x2 over 2, and then y1 plus y2 over 2. Very important. So this formula automatically gives you the x and y coordinate. Can you all see it? So let's just go to a question right away. It's very basic. So you take the x values of the 2 points, add them up together, divide them by 2, you get your x coordinate. You take the y values, add them up together, you get your y coordinate there. Perfect. So let's do this question quickly. Blah, blah, blah. I hope this video is not more than 15 minutes, but I'm taking my time so that I do not rush it. So let's say you are given 2 points, A and B, and you are asked to find the midpoint between A and B, which is M. What does the midpoint mean? The midpoint simply means that the distance between AB will be this, AM will be the same distance as what? BM. Yes, BM. So what are we going to do? We're going to use this formula. So remember, the first thing that you have to do is to choose which one is going to be your x1, y1. So as I say again, it does not really matter which one you choose to be x1, y1, but you cannot say x1, x2. Remember, this is the x, the first is the x coordinate and then a y coordinate. So x1, y1, x2, y2. Then we're gonna substitute into our formula according to the order. So which one is x1? X1, we said it is 2 plus x2 is 8 over 2. You leave it like that. You go to the y part. 1 plus what? Plus 3 over 2. Okay. So if it was a negative, because I didn't get a negative question, but let's say it here, if it was a negative, remember it was going to affect this plus. And a positive and a negative is going to make a negative. So if we had a negative point amongst the coordinate, we're going to have a negative sign in between. Don't forget, if we're given a negative answer, it's going to change the sign of the formula. The sign in between is going to change. So 2 plus 8 is how much? It's 10 over 2. And here we've got 4 over 2. Then 2 goes into 10 how many times? 5 times. 2 goes into 4 how many times? Twice. So the midpoint, I hope you can see it there, the midpoint of M, the midpoint between A and B is actually how much? 5 and 2. I hope you get it. Very basic also, nothing hectic. So if they ask you such a question, you need to score marks right away, you know, don't waste anything. The catch might be on remembering the formula, but it's not a train smash. Now let's go straight to gradient. We're doing the last part. So the gradient is the one that when we're doing relax, when we're doing gradient, okay, I hope you can see. Can you see here? Number 3, we are doing the gradient or the gradient. Sure. Okay, so with this one we're gonna spend a little more time when we're doing application because of the things that you need to learn, but let me just name them, say them just quickly. So the formula is given by this: y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So the difference between your y values over the change in the x values. So we can write it as this. Also, you can use letters, it does not matter. Sorry, this is y. Okay, b minus a, it's like that. Or change, this is a sign, it means delta, it means the change in, so the difference. So we can use each and any of these formulas or formulae, you will be fine. So what we need to know about this: number 1, once they tell you that certain lines are parallel, and that's the sign for parallel, you know that the gradients are the same. Gradient is the same. So whatever is the gradient of that one line will be the same as the gradient of the other line. If they tell you that lines are perpendicular, meaning they form a right angle, that's the sign for perpendicular. What do you know? That the product of the gradients will give you -1. So maybe they say the gradient of 1 times the gradient of the other line must add up to the product of the gradients equals to -1. Equals -1. Do you see it? You get it? I hope you can see it. So when you multiply the two, you must get -1. It means they're perpendicular. And the last thing, it's collinear. Collinear are lines that are on the same line. Let's say we have 3 points on the same line like that. So the gradient of AB, the gradient here, must be the same as the gradient between BC and the gradient when you take the whole thing. So for points to be collinear, their gradient has to be the same. So already I gave you the formula of the gradient. Let's just do one question immediately. Okay, let me take a question with a negative value so that we do justice. We need justice. Okay, find the gradient between the following using the formula for the gradient. So find the gradient find the gradient between point C, which is -5 and 1, and point D, which is -1 and 3. Okay, wonderful. Okay, so what do we do? Firstly, we write the formula. So the gradient, we use a small letter m for gradient. The gradient between CD equals to, now you have to go choose. Remember we said choose x1, y1, x2, y2. It does not matter. You can use whatever sign you want to use this one. What am I doing? It's the y value first. Okay, yeah, boo. Now we substitute according to the order, and please note that in this case now we've got a minus sign in between. So we start with y2. Y2 is what? Is 3. 3 minus y1 is what? Is 1. So it's going to be 3 minus 1 over x2 is what? It's -1. Okay, so this one also okay. Yeah, that's what I wanted. So x1, it's -5. Can you see? We've got a negative there, and this one is coming with the -5, with a minus also. So we're going to have something like that because we've got a negative and a negative. Then we know according to our integers. Okay, I can solve the one on top. 3 minus 1 is 2. Underneath, -1 plus 5. A negative and a negative will give you a positive. So press this on a calculator if you don't know, but you're basically subtracting 1 from 5, so the answer will be 4. Now you have to simplify. Okay, you have to simplify that. Becomes 1 over 2. Look for a number that can go into both of them without the remainder. Is 2. 2 goes into 2 once, and 2 goes into 4 twice. So the gradient between CD is actually 1 over 2. So that's just the basic part of analytical geometry. Make sure you do as lot of questions as possible to make you comfortable with the questions, comfortable with the topic. And then please look out for the video that I'm gonna do just now on application, like the questions that they will ask you. They wouldn't ask you such questions on the test. This is very basic. They might sometimes, but the application part of these things, using them in questions, is what is more important. So thank you so much. Please like the video, share the video, comment if you enjoyed, if you learned something, or if there's something I missed. Please, you're more welcome to comment and share the video. Thank you.